Okay, continuing the conversation here.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, about that same time in 2006 is when we did Rush for the first time, which was also, I think, yeah, close to our peak, or at least personally for me, one of our biggest achievements was pulling that off, which is something that we had been building up to be able to really use that space as an educational.
So you were starting to have workshops and have enough established infrastructure to teach people about. So tell me everything that you guys were doing. You were just like, is it what you were saying before, the rainwater stuff and the mushrooms and all that different stuff.
Food systems, water, waste, energy.
Yeah.
At the time, you know, really putting emphasis on using a lot of salvaged, recycled materials with the idea that we wanted this to be something that was accessible to the greatest number of people and to give people access to the tools and information needed to have more control and access to, you know, food, their essential resources.
So when did the workshop program really get the Rust stuff? When did that really start getting going?
2006 was the first time we did it. We had a couple of things that sort of led up to that were almost like precursors to Rust. We had this thing called AutonoFest, one thing called Microfair, that were kind of, you know, sort of leading up to that, and then yeah, we did Rust for the first time in 2006 and did it 2 times this year. We've actually just in October now we did it for the 11th time, and there's been like 550 people who've taken that class. So that's one thing that I'm particularly proud of that we've actually managed to do, and that has gone on since and beyond.
At that same space.
What's that?
At the same space or no?
No, we actually do it here in Albany.
Oh, you do it here in Albany.
Yeah, and I think in 2008 was the first time we did it in Albany. We did for a period of time. We were doing them both in New York and in Texas, and still continue to do it
at the new space.
Yeah, it's actually now called the Regenerative Urban Sustainability Training. I've changed the title of it.
Well, I want to hear about that, but tell me a little bit about the kind of the end there. What happened with the Austin city officials?
Okay. So like we were saying before, we had gotten pretty regular inspections from city officials. Would come in about once or twice a year. We had a neighbor who was continually calling codes on us. He was just kind of this crazy guy, and they just were like, "Oh, it's him," but they would have to come. They'd call him. They'd walk through the building and usually say something like, "Oh, replace a light plate here, fix this here or there." We had this, and over this 10-year period, we've been building the second story across the whole top of the building, slowly in segments over a period of time. But the thing is, nobody ever said anything about it, so we just sort of assumed, well, I guess it's not a problem. And in that part of town, it's sort of part of the culture of that place that a lot of people did unpermitted construction. And there was sort of an ethic of not ratting out your neighbors for doing that, because everybody did, you know, and no one really thought much of it. We'd also had done a lot of modifications to wiring, plumbing, on our own. You know, all sound, all good work, but what we later learned was that if you have systems, old electrical plumbing systems that are grandfathered in when you purchase a building, the building was built in 1952, that, yes, they get grandfathered in, but if you make any modification to them, even the slightest, like wiring adjustment, that negates the grandfather. It tosses it out, and you would then have to redo everything. Right. Which, you know, is extraordinary, how much that would cost. We'd also put... we were one of the first, I think the first commercial building in the city of Austin to get their solar rebate program. Okay. They gave us an 80%
yeah, Austin rebate. Has an awesome solar rebate program.
Yeah, on the installation of put up like 32 150 watt panels, a pretty sizable system with a grid intertie. That was up on the roof.
On top of the...
Not the residential, actually in the backspace, which was the main... sort of main community space. We'd have also a lot of events and fundraisers and parties there. We had a pretty big space, open space for parties. That was also one of our, probably our main, next to the rent paid by the residents.
There's a source of income for you.
Yeah, was parties and events and fundraisers. And being in our location, what it was sort of tucked away, and we had just that one neighbor. We could have pretty large and loud parties that would go on way into the night.
Music and stuff like that.
Yeah, which it was sort of an odd. It was an odd mix, to have this space that was very much focused about activism and sustainability, and then at night it would just turn into this debaucherous place with these
people drinking too much beer.
Yeah, crazy parties.
Yeah.
And all of us having to basically be security guards.
Uh-huh.
And that was sort of, this other role I would play at nighttime, just being the jerk going around. And
did that bother any of the residents, this parties, or no, not too bad?
Yeah, but the thing is, people knew that going in, and they basically have to be okay with it.
Yeah.
It was probably the biggest annoyance to us at the very end, after we had children, and we're living right next to the Backspace. Our new room was right up there, and the sound just came through the walls. And,
sure.
There was one party we had. Austin does this thing called South by Southwest. That's just this huge music festival. And this magazine called Vice had this party there that just went until 4 in the morning, and you just had people from out of town who had no respect for the space, just peeing on everything.
Yeah.
People ripping fruit trees out of the ground, trouncing the gardens. That was a low point.
Yeah.
But that was it was also how we made it, how we survived.
So in 2008, so you had all this grandfather stuff in. That's an altar. You had the residences.
We built this whole second story. We had a number of people living there. Apparently, something had changed internally in the codes department that previous summer, and while there used to be just a handful of people, code enforcers, working at any given time, there all of a sudden were like 30. Mm-hmm. Hired a huge number more of code enforcers, and some internal policy shift where, it's pretty clear what was happening. They just wanted to sanitize that part of town. They had, over the 10 years I had lived there, I'd watched condominiums be built eastward down the railroad corridor alongside both sides of the tracks, pushing its way into the east side of Austin, which was, primarily Latino, usually so, and, watch it becoming rapidly gentrified.
Right.
And we, of course, we're publicly opposed to gentrification, but, is still complicit in it at the same time, being an organization that was not entirely, but primarily white. Certainly played a role in that happening, even if we were actively resisting it at the same time. And so, I think around that time in 2008, they cracked down on a number of community spaces, ours included, the Brownfield. There was another space called the Whaleball, pretty similar, all within like a 2-month period, just all were shut down. And we were down there, I think it was in February, and the code enforcer came through, just like they always do, and he saw something that made him a little bit nervous, and so he decided to call a supervisor and have a supervisor come back. And the supervisor...
You were here...
What's that?
You were
I was actually there, I was there at the time. And it was a supervisor. It was interesting, the first white supervisor who had ever... code enforcer had ever been there, and they just like anything we'd ever been trying to hide, he found it. He just walked through the space with a camera, taking photos.
The supervisor, so he basically showed up right away.
Yeah. Well, he came and we make an appointment and just listing things, and it's like all the stuff that all the code enforcers hadn't either didn't care about or turned a blind eye to. He just, he zeroed right in on it. And
so what was that? A lot of electrical and plumbing.
Plumbing structure. The whole second story for one thing. It's like he was like, when did you build this? When was this built? And I was like, well, it was here before we bought the building. And he's like, well, I know you're lying because I can see the Romex wiring is a certain color, and I know that wasn't even made until 2003. And I was just like, I was like, all I could do was play idiot. You know? I was very nervous. You know, I'm like, God, am I going to get in trouble for lying? You know,
right?
But yeah, I mean, we found that the plumbing, the wiring, the backspace had just developed all kinds of leaks and rusty spots, and so went through, sat us back down, and he just was like, I don't even know where to start. He's like, give this whole list, and it wasn't a detailed list. It wasn't fix this, fix this, fix this. It was just like it said something like plumbing, structural, electrical.
Bring all up to code.
Yes, like this completely open-ended list, and said, okay, effective immediately. Everyone has to be out. All residents, all community groups are.
Did you try to bargain with him on that?
He basically said, I'm not coming back for 14 days. So yes, it's effective as of immediately, but. Kind of saying, look, you have 14 days to get out. And then said you have, I forget exactly what period of days, something equal to that, like 14 days to pull all the permits that would be necessary to do all this work, which was totally undefined and vague and unclear about what actually needed to happen. If we failed to pull the permits within that period of time, we would be facing $35,000 a day fines.
$35,000 a day?
Yeah, potential criminal charges. We'd get taken to court. It was crazy. It was insane.
Yeah.
By evicting everybody, he killed the income earning potential of the space right away. I mean, there was even if we had a chance of doing all that work, we didn't at that point because the space had no way to earn the money. So, and we had contractors come in and give us estimates of what it would take to bring the space back up to code. And they couldn't even, it was just guesses on their parts because they didn't even know because of how vague it was. But they were saying low end $200,000. More than what the building was worth in the first place, you know?
Yeah.
So, we actually did go in front of City Council, the mayor, Common Council, to make an appeal for assistance. I mean, it came as a big shock to me because, you know, I thought that we had really been on the city's good side, that we had a lot of allies within the city. They'd given us all kinds of awards and accolades.
Right.
You know, the newspapers wrote commonly about us and all the great work we were doing. Yeah, we went from the mayor, and I wrote this piece, you know, saying, we take responsibility for this, we've done all this good work, can you please give us some sort of assistance? And the mayor, you know, sat and listened. And the head of the code department came and said, okay, well, I'll give you, instead of having to pull the permits in 14 days, I'll give you 30 days. Something like that. It was like this sort of token gesture that did nothing, really.
Anything wrong.
Yeah. So, we, at that point, really had no choice, other option, but to sell the building. Because there's no way that we could afford to do the work that was required in the time frame.
And you couldn't afford to let it sit empty either, probably.
They weren't going to let us.
They weren't going to let us.
No, that's not an option just to seal it up because they don't want buildings to sit vacant in disrepair. They want to pressure the owners into doing work on them to fix them up. Hey, sweetie. Do you want to join me for this part of it, this lovely part of the tale?
Well, you guys can, you know, don't need too much longer, but move on to the
I was just telling him how
we're back to get really tense and angry.
Yeah, how we went in front of the Common Council and they said, well, you have 30 days to get all the permits instead of 14 days or whatever it was. And
thanks.
Yeah,
that's great. And everybody has to be out.
Yeah, we said that, and basically, I just got to the point of saying that we had no choice but to sell the building.
Yeah.
So
we
did, and
we offered Rhizome we offered it to Rhizome at what we had put into it.
Mm-hmm.
Plus,
right.
Yeah, online.
But
they couldn't afford it, or they didn't have it.
They didn't have it. They had $5,000. You know,
yeah.
it's not.
And their income had just been killed by the fact that everybody was evicted.
Yeah.
You don't have another one.
So
were you able to sell it, or?
Well, kind of.
What does that mean?
We had
The only offer that we got on the building was owner finance.
Oh.
So we got the down payment went to the real estate agents. Okay. And then the guy stopped making interest payments and renegotiated, and now because the economy is not really
right.
So he's sitting there. He's sitting on it.
Is he paying you anything?
No.
He's not paying anything right now.
No, so it's it's just a big mess.
Yeah.
Big mess.
Yeah.
The whole thing was a big mess. Terrible mess. And it would have been a whole other thing too if the collective actually had owned the building at that point. And so right all before this went down, I mean, there was a strong movement for that to happen. I mean, there's a group of people that actually were really looking at it, what it would take to buy the building back.
But then that group fell apart.
Yeah, well, they concluded that there was a lack of an energized core at that point, that late in the game.
That was a year before.
That energy had just sort of dispersed, and the people who might have been really active in making that happen had left. There was a really high turnover rate of people there. Some people just sort of come.
It doesn't lend to ownership.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's it's Austin itself is a pretty transient kind of place. Not that many people are just putting down that sort of deep roots there, and sort of people will come, be there for a little while, and then move on. And to a lot of the folks, the idea of commitment to anything is very much, let alone to actually owning a space and looking have to make mortgage payments for years.
Right.
They just they couldn't make it happen. So we were still the owners of the space when all this went down, and there was all kinds of friction and anger that happened then, because there was people who were saying, who wanted to lock down the space and try and hold on. It was like, well, you're not going to be the ones holding the ball at the end of this. We're still the ones owning the space. Stacy's 7 months pregnant. We have a 2-year-old child.
Right.
At this point, we're not interested in locking down and facing $35,000 a day fees and criminal charges. At this point in our lives, that doesn't make sense for us.
Yeah.
And so we got kind of called all kinds of nasty things. Unfortunately, by a handful.
It was a handful of people that really didn't understand the relationship of the entire space to begin with.
Yeah.
And came in and thought that they had a certain thing going on. That
thought that collective ownership existed when in fact it really didn't.
Yeah, or thought that it should.
Yeah.
Right.
Just because they use the space 2 hours once a week. Then they should own it. I mean, it was interesting because the people who most loudly were the ones saying that kind of thing weren't the people who were making the space function on a daily basis. They weren't the ones that were there day to day returning phone calls or emails or
some people just showed up and kind of
felt
entitled.
Or they came and we use it every once in a while for their radio show or whatever. And I don't know. It was very eye-opening to see that
how people behaved in that crisis.
How people behaved in the crisis, and then just to see how different people understood a situation that I thought was very clear, and that they had a completely different understanding of it.
That had no basis in reality.
Or they sort of hear what they want to hear,
Yeah, I mean, it was just a really eye-opening. Like, what do you mean you don't understand that there? I mean, just the different financial realities of having a space and where Rhizome money went. So, I mean, there was things that I came with all the numbers to meetings and sat down and showed people, and then but people walk away. And I mean, how many people? Not everybody's brain works great around numbers. And I don't know. So it was a very it really. I don't know, it was a very hurtful.
Yeah, it was terribly disheartening.
Really.
Terribly disheartening.
Well, tell me about recovering from that and starting stuff up here. Tell me about what's going on, what you got going around in the neighborhood. Pulled a lot of weeds. So you have a spot around the corner.
Yeah, so we have a spot around the corner up here in Albany, in the neighborhood where
we're able to get ownership
we've been coming to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been very slowly going the
snail's pace
at an incredible snail's pace. It's been over 2 years, and we finally put in our first building permit application.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, and then now there's more snafus, and we're waiting on that. But to build a environmental educational center here, and so that's what we're
working on.
Yeah.
Which is the Radix Ecological Sustainability Center.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's not going to be a collective living situation.
Yeah. No one will live there, I take it. Or...
Well, we eventually want to build a house there, yeah.
Yeah.
But initially what we want to do is construct as a greenhouse and have it primarily be just an educational space.
Mm-hmm. It'll be a working farm also, or... Not
well,
really?
I wouldn't quite know if we'll call it a farm. Gardens.
Gardens.
I guess on the edge of being a farm, you know, we have chickens and animals down there. But basically, yeah, we have it's a half-acre parcel of land that we want to have be a demonstration of ecological tools and technologies, similar to what Rhizome was. And also be developing models for what we call ecologically regenerative micro-industries to see if we can couple sustainable activities with...
So give me an example of some of
mushroom production, for instance, intercepting waste products, urban waste products, growing mushrooms, a high-value gourmet food product, and then having spent substrate as a value-added product that can be used for remediation of toxic soils.
Mm-hmm.
Exploring those and seeing what potential exists is something that can be applied in an inner-city environment. You know, it's one thing to talk about the environmental importance of things, but if you really want to see it be implemented on a broad scale, I think you have to demonstrate its economic relevance as well. So that's an aspect of what we're doing. I think we're trying to have the space have more of it's funny to say, but sort of a mainstream appeal, yet not be compromising our core values at the same time. I mean, I think one thing about Rhizome was that it was strongly subculturally oriented. I mean, it's sort of freaky space,
right?
And you know,
do you think you intimidated some people?
I think there was a lot of people. I don't know. I guess some people were intimidated, but I think a lot more people were just alienated. Like they were just people who we might have really been trying to reach and would have been great to make connections with would have just shown up there and been instantly turned off by just the appearance of it. So we're trying to make a space that's less like that. You know, I'm not trying to freak anybody out at this point. I really want to see this go to the next level and have come up against the limitations of the subculture, whatever
it needs to be mainstream,
be.
obviously.
Yeah, and want to see it go exponential in order for that to happen, and to meet people where they're at and demonstrate how it has relevance to everyone. And you know, I mean, I learned a huge amount from Rhizome. You know, I don't see it. I mean, yeah, there was unfortunate things that happened in the end, but overall, I see it very much as a positive thing. I mean, we learned an incredible amount. Hopefully, inspired a lot of people as well, and are trying to create something and incorporating lessons I learned from that. And one of them is to try and just knowing that I can't take shortcuts when it comes to legal issues, to getting things permitted, to getting all of your legal permission. In some places, we can get away with that, and probably in where we were at the time, in East Austin, it made sense because we could at the time, you could get away with it, and we didn't. For us, it wasn't an option to. We couldn't have afforded to necessarily hire an architect and structural engineer, build everything according to plans, and have gotten off at the ground at the same time. You know, it wasn't an option for us in the beginning.
The only option was the way you did it.
Yeah, and the thing is, for a lot of people, that may be their only option. And in a lot of rural areas, you can probably get away with things as well. And for years, I sort of advocated that people do that. They go under the radar and they do build what I call clandestine systems, which I think definitely have their place, especially with things that are more experimental systems to sort of work out the technical issues and the glitches first, to know that something actually works before you try and get it permitted, before you try and get legal approval to find it. You need to be able to demonstrate beyond a doubt that it's not going to be a danger or a nuisance to anybody. Right. So that definitely has its place. But yeah, I mean, so it's taken us a really long time. We had to, first get a use variance. That meant going around talking to all the neighborhood associations, telling about what we were doing, getting them on board, getting the use variance, and we had to get site plan approval, which took a number of months after that. We managed to do that. That also long process involving architects and engineers. We did get a permission from the city clerk to keep livestock on the site. Albany has a law, an anti-livestock law, that says that livestock are incompatible with urban life, this kind of garbage, unless they're used for nonprofit or educational purposes, which is exactly what we're doing. Right. So we actually did get permission, so we intend to keep chickens, goats down there. And we're actually currently working with a group that just in the past week has started a campaign to make a modification to that livestock law in Albany so that people can keep backyard chickens.
So how many more people besides yourselves do you see involved in the education center and the project that you have on?
That's sort of an open question. I think we're trying to figure that out. And the question, and I guess, I have just a lot of hesitancy coming out of Rhizome about people developing an unreasonable sense of propriety and ownership over the space. And maybe that's that's just sort of coming out of, it's almost just reactionary from what happened at the end of Rhizome. And I think it just needs to be made clear to people coming in that if they're volunteering, that does not necessarily mean that you have ownership over the space.
Right.
In 9 out of 10...
Right, for the majority of people, that's not going to be an issue, right?
Somebody goes and volunteers somewhere,
right.
They don't expect to own it.
We're just used to working with an anarchist that believes that, though, and, yes.
I don't want it on the camera.
So, yeah, I mean, it would be great to have other people be part of it at some point. I guess we're not really sure how to word that out yet. We haven't gotten there yet because we're still just in the development phase right now.
Right.
We're putting it all together.
Stop. Put them down. Put them down.
Great. Well, I think I have a lot of footage there. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about, or
Ellie, honey,
any other lessons learned, or I think you probably went through them all. But
legal
random
structure.
thoughts.
Just that we want to sort of run this more like a standard nonprofit, I guess. With the board. It's not a consensus run. Well, I guess between you and me it's consensus, but no, I make decisions.
I mean, do you feel totally burned on that model, or are you just not have the energy to try to go through that again? Or
I think it just depends on what you're. I'm in a collective right now that's putting together a pottery studio. So I mean, we're all working on it. We're renting a space, so it's like, and that's what we're calling the group. But,
a collective.
Yeah, but there's been different forms of different collectives. Like there's been dinner collectives in this neighborhood where a different family cooks for a whole bunch,
Yeah, but there's no ownership involved there.
Right, but it's not. It's different.
You have a business or a property.
We tried to do everything, and maybe that was a mistake.
Right.
We wanted to have every single aspect of everything out of there.
Right. Instead of taking one thing at a time and accomplishing it, you wanted to have it be a collective. It was urban. It was a house and all these things.
Event space, bike shop. There's everything under the sun.
Your gardens.
And we really spread ourselves pretty thin, I think.
Hey, that was hers.
I mean, I think with Radix, we want to be we're a lot more focused about sort of the educational component of it, having that be primary, and plus having children means we have to be. It's we don't have the free time or energy that we did prior to having children at all.
You think should be above board with children too. I mean, you think, like you were saying, you couldn't be living in that space.
No, I can't.
Kids.
That constant anxiety that was present at Rhizome for years of just Always, like, just waiting for somebody to be like, codes are here, and just be like, and just that. And whenever you see a city truck rolling up, just to have to be paranoid, and I don't want to live like that anymore. When I see a city truck, I don't want to freak out. I want to just know that everything's above board and it's all a workable issue. We can, there's not like this huge thing that we have hidden, this whole second story that's going to just destroy the space if anybody finds out that it's there. I can't live like that anymore, and especially with children. I don't want to subject them to that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are big lessons from it. And in the systems whatever systems that we build need to be done above board. Because, in Austin, we had illegal composting toilets, we had illegal gray water systems, we had all those things. And they were great, they were experimental, but to get them legally approved, it's a huge battle. I think it's a very noble and important form of activism, but it's going to require...
So you think that the political system is flexible enough that you can see fighting for all these things to happen and feel like you can get that changed? Depends
what they are. Some things are going to be much harder than others.
Like what, in your opinion?
Composting toilets and gray water systems are definitely, I think, the toughest. We managed to do it in Austin, but the thing down there is they actually have an incentive for creating water-saving systems, water conservation systems, which composting toilet is. Up here, nobody, it's like, what? They're like, what? There's tons of water, which is not true, but that's the perception, at least. Not too many people in the Northeast have been successful in, that I'm aware of getting composting toilets, getting a certificate of occupancy for a residential space that has a composting toilet and no septic tank. Mm-hmm. I'm not aware of anyone who's been successful in doing that, except for instances in Vermont where we're grandfathered in, but in recent years, no one's managed to do that. Not the case in the Southwest. There's and down there. The argument is it's about water conservation, and that makes sense to people.
Right.
Portland, Oregon, they've actually managed to get a statewide gray water code, which I think is pretty cool. The Northeast is behind the curve in a lot of this stuff. It's like green to people up here means more often than not recycling,
right,
biking, walking to work, transportation, buses. All good stuff, but it's not about necessarily closing nutrient loops. It's not about necessarily taking our wastes and putting back in the soil to build up.
They understand local food, but
that's
big, but it doesn't like
that part. They haven't quite gotten there yet.
Yeah.
So that's also a big part of what we want to do with the space is to create a demonstration of these systems and show people what's this next step. What does it really mean to look at sustainability on a really deep, fundamental level. When it comes down to water and waste management and energy production, what does it actually look like? To show that it is possible and that it's not offensive and that it's can be a great adventure. The whole experience is what I want to do.
Can I add one more?
Yep.
Because I don't know where you were, what else you said because I was gone, but coming out of the whole Rhizome situation, it's not all just negative, and there are
I tried to.
There are people that we love and that understood and supported us. And,
right.
And the vast majority of people,
It was just a handful.
It was a handful of very loud people. But and our last night in Austin was so sad,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of people that I really love and I miss down there.
Sure.
So just to
I
don't know. I just feel like it's really easy for me to get wrapped up in negative things about it and forget that there's always that too.
And I'm sure those will shine over the course of time. Those will be more apparent, and the trauma will be less.
So, in your book, are you sort of focusing on people?
I'm gonna cut this off.
Okay.
Or did you want me to keep it going?
No.
You really